friends and family. How are you doing on another Sunday night here with Anna Kujawa and Greg Quinn and A Course in Miracles?
That's right, and all of our mighty companions here at Mahihi. All right, there's some mighty companions in the house. All right, and more people coming in, and thank you guys for joining out there in virtual land. This is our Sunday night class, and the name of our class is Transforming Relationships Through A Course in Miracles. So we have dedicated this class and our Tuesday class to what does A Course in Miracles have to say about relationships and how relationships, all of them, can be transformed from something that we use to give us lots of pain to something that Spirit uses to turn hell into heaven. Mm-hmm. That's what A Course in Miracles has to say about relationships in the hands of Spirit. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? What happens when you give your relationship to Spirit, that Spirit might use it, and how to do that. How do you turn over your relationship to a higher power, a higher love, a mind with profoundly more wisdom than we have? All right. So, and then we are going to be in chapter 21, section 3, and the section is called Faith, Belief, and Vision. So if you guys watching, like Les, if you would be willing to put in the comments section, chapter 21, section 3, that would be so helpful. And hi Les, lovely to see you, my dear. This is how to turn hell into heaven. Exactly. And hi David, lovely to see you too. We've got two cameras going here. So if you see us going back and forth, that's what's going on. Okay, do you want to do a little opening thing for a couple of minutes?
Sure,
just to bring our minds out of the past and out of the future and see what's going on now? How about it? All right, so we're going to just take a couple of minutes and tune within, letting go of our day. So, this is our time to step out of the world for a few moments and to allow our minds to come back home within to the precious, powerful present, where our minds can rest and heal and open to all the love and the peace that surrounds our minds. This is our time to allow our minds to rest from doing, from analyzing, from figuring out, allowing our minds to be as our minds were created by love. And so remain. And so we tune our awareness like a dial on a radio to the frequency and the vibration of the present moment now. tuning into the infinite universe that can only be accessed from this moment now. This moment now is eternal. Eternity is now. What does your eternal self feel like? How would you feel right now if you knew that you were eternal? You last forever. And how does it feel right now to know that anything that doesn't make you happy doesn't last forever? We are practicing the holy instant now. Resting our minds in eternal love. Rest, mind. Rest on the love that is eternal, forever unchanging. Rest in love. I rest in God. This holy instant now, there is nothing to fear. For this instant now, you are already complete and healed and whole, already and forever. Feel that. Need do nothing but rest in God now. back to the ground, back to your body. Remembering that you can experience the ecstasy of now, anytime, anywhere, or free. What a deal. Funny, we have to remind ourselves of that.
And in this market of inflation, that's a bargain.
Totally. I love it. I love it. What's that saying that nothing worth having is for free? Well, you know, that's not true. Thank God. In reality, you know, the only thing that has value is what's free for everyone forever.
Yeah, isn't it nice every time we go to the grocery store, the price of all these products, goods and services are going up, but the price of peace remains the same price it's always been.
Yay!
Free for the asking.
Woo, good news. Now that's good news. I'm gonna try to remember that next time I go to the grocery store in the States. What was that I was supposed to remember while I'm sitting here about to cry?
What do I get for free?
Exactly.
For the asking.
Well, honey, I guess all we're having tonight for dinner is peace.
Peace and joy.
Hope you like it. And just remember, you're complete from within.
Here's a fork.
Yeah, here's a fork. How to save money on grocery bills. Remember that you're complete from within. All right. I love it.
Well, if you're just tuning in, we did what we do every week, but we did it before class. And that is, as we prayed the Spirit, hey, you know who all's showing up, and you know what all we need to hear. And so do us a favor and just cut us right to the chase. We love talking on Sundays about relationships. And Anna and I love taking A Course in Miracles, the curriculum, and then turning it over into our relationships and how can we practically use that in our daily lives and in our relationship with one another, so we can go what the Course calls a special relationship, which of course is what Spirit gave us to talk about tonight in chapter 21, section 3, called Faith, Belief, and Vision. We're going to talk all about tonight about special relationships and how Holy Spirit would love for us to give us our special relationships, which were made for one purpose. And Holy Spirit says, hey, why don't you give me that special relationship and let me show you another purpose that you can consider using it for.
Exactly.
And then see the contrast of the two and decide which one you want to do.
Which one you like better.
Yeah.
The Course in Miracles teaches that it's very difficult to teach us that relationships are not our doom. It literally says that. You know, it takes great practice for you guys to learn that relationships are not your doom.
They're actually your savior.
They're actually your salvation, actually, you know. And so in this section, it's very powerful because, you know, just like Greg was saying, this section, it really, the whole Course in Miracles book, but in particular the last sections in the text are all about how Spirit wants to take your relationships from you and show you another purpose for them that will literally turn not only your relationship from hell into heaven, but earth into heaven from hell. And so the beginning of the section, first of course, has got to talk about the purposes we've been using our relationships for. Okay, so everybody ready? Okay, everybody buckled up and all right. And just remember, the whole purpose of A Course in Miracles is forgiveness. So when you, don't forget that. So when you hear what you do, when we hear what we do, what we've used our relationships for, it's a little tempting to go, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Oh my God, I'm doomed. Right? It's a little tempting. And so just remember that the Course in Miracles literally says it is only if you are willing to look at what you have made of your relationships that you would be willing to give your relationships to Spirit to see what Spirit can do with them. So unless you're willing to go, man, I have been using my relationships to keep myself in hell in a way that I can blame someone else. I've been using my relationships so that I could attack innocently. I'm addicted to attack, but I want to do it and feel innocent, feel like a good person. And so I'm gonna get me a relationship. So when you hear how we've been using it, don't feel guilty. Remember, we're all the same. We've all done the same thing. That's why we're all here together. And as you listen to it, just know that that is the process of giving it to Spirit, so that Spirit can give you another purpose for them. Okay? Amen. All right. Okay. And we are open for questions and comments. We love your questions and comments. It takes the experience to a deeper level, so feel free to comment, questions, and we welcome your yes buts. In here, it's okay to be a yes butt head. It's okay. Yes, but have you met my partner? Yes, but have you met my mother? So feel free. Okay, so here we go. Faith, belief, and vision. All special relationships, that's the relationships that we have made, have sin and guilt as their goal. That's the first sentence.
And as always, the Course in Miracles throws these words out there, and as I was reading it today, that word sin, that really trips us up a lot. For some of us, it does me. And what I heard today when Anna and I were first reading this just before class, all special relationships, instead of the word sin, have punishment as their goal.
Oh, thanks, Greg.
And we don't realize the gravity of, in our relationships, we have a purpose for this relationship. We so believe that we're bad, we're evil, guilty, and so what do the guilty get but punishment? And so we have this relationship we formed, and secretly I want to use this relationship to punish myself.
Yes.
And I'm going to do it by punishing others, knowing in my subconscious that it's going to come back and punish me, which I deserve, of course.
Yes,
That's what I believe.
Yes, isn't that deep? And now it's so easy to see in other people, right? It's easy to see like, well, they obviously got that person to punish themselves, right? It's easy to see how other people do it. Like, why would they be attracted to that person? That's like the worst person for them, right? But more difficult to see how we are unconsciously attracted to those who would punish us for our supposed guilt. Okay, that's because the purpose of relationships, as we made our relationships, the purpose was guilt. I want some guilt. I need some guilt. Guilt is love. I want some guilt. Guilt makes me safe. Guilt is love, and so that's what I'm looking for. And so I'm looking for the people, places, and things where I can experience myself as guilty, And guilt just means I feel guilty all the time. That's what relationships with guilt as the purpose means. It means I feel guilty all the time. I feel guilty for being myself. I feel guilty for wanting to change them. I feel guilty for what I want to do. I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty. And I'm addicted to making them feel guilty to try to control them. That's all special relationships have guilt and sin as their goal. Anybody in here recognize that or know anybody who's had relationships that make them feel guilty? Anyone? Anyone back there? Somebody in the back. The person crying. Okay, there's a first opening sentence, eh?
And we always say, you know, these special relationships are not just with the person that you're married to, living with, rooming with, partnering with. The special relationship can be with your job. If your goal is to punish yourself and you get a job that you hate and you work there for 25 years, wouldn't that be a good understanding now of why you did that to yourself?
Yes.
Rather than to go and seek a career that would bring fun, joy, happiness, bliss, excitement, all the things you would naturally want to do, but we don't seem to find ourselves in those kind of relationships at all.
Because we don't feel like we deserve it.
We don't realize the purpose
Yes.
that we have set what
Yes.
as a goal.
Yes.
Whatever your goal is, you're always focused on that goal.
Exactly. And so a special relationship is any relationship where there's guilt, where we're exchanging guilt back and forth. Okay? So basically all of our relationships.
Most of them.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, and the relationships that, for me, that I'm not exchanging guilt in, it's usually the people I'm not as close to, I'm not as close with. You know, they live in another country. Like, that's gonna be y'all soon. You and I, we're all gonna have a holy relationship real soon, because we're not gonna be doing any guilt exchange. All right. And so, now it says relationships that have guilt as their goal. These relationships are bargains with reality. Bargains toward which the seeming union is adjusted. So a special relationship is where we're adjusting the relationship always to guilt, like
To meet our goal.
exactly, bargaining, like, okay, like I'll get a little bit of guilt from you, so that then here's my little guilt, like, you know, I'll do my little sacrifice, but you got to do some bigger sacrifice. Okay, we're bargaining here. You know, we're at the bargaining table. I'll do this sacrifice if you'll give this sacrifice. I'll sacrifice my innocence here if you'll sacrifice your innocence there. Deal? A deal. I do. And on the dotted line. It says, forget not this. To bargain is to set a limit, and any person with whom you have a limited relationship, you hate. Oh. Well, when you say it like that. So any relationship where we're bargaining with sacrifice, I'll sacrifice this if you sacrifice that in the name of love. In fairness, we're bargaining with our innocence. You may call that love, but it ain't. That's hate. Wow. Because even if I go, well, I'll sacrifice something for you, honey. Of Course in Miracles says you can't sacrifice for your partner and not secretly hate them for what you sacrificed to them. You can't. You can't make that sacrifice and then it be love. Wow.
And what would you give as off the top of your head example of what a sacrifice in a relationship would be?
Well, like, I will give up my, I like hiking, but you don't like hiking.
Mm-hmm.
And so, since I love you, I'll give up hiking. Okay, but what are you gonna give up? You know.
Well, don't ask me to give up poker.
See? But now we're at the bargaining table.
You know how I like my card game.
Exactly. And another famous one is freedom. You know, we all, like, we get into relationships, whether it's relationships with, you know, romantic or family or business or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, now that you love me, I guess I have to sacrifice my freedom. Or I guess I can't be myself anymore. but you better not be yourself. So we're always negotiating and looking at that bargain. How's our bargain doing today? Is it fair today? You know?
So really, Creator made you and knows what would make you happy. And so as you're doing your natural being yourself happy, I come into the picture, and I think part of my happiness hinges on me changing something about you.
Exactly.
And you adjusting, as it said, to that, to reality, to fit my bargaining, my goal.
Exactly. To fit your guilt.
Right.
Yes. Exactly. Now, and so thank you for asking that. That's those are just a few examples of the way that we do relationships. And what do we hear about relationships all the time? Relationships are a compromise. Relationships are a compromise. You gotta give up something, And that's what A Course in Miracles says. A Course in Miracles says we have so associated love and sacrifice, we can't even conceive of love without sacrifice. And we're very imaginative people. We can't even conceive of love without sacrifice. What do you mean a love that demands no sacrifice ever? What are you talking about? That doesn't sound like love. That sounds like somebody who don't like me. That's how messed up we are about love. Somebody who's not going to demand any sacrifice of me, I just think that they don't want me. You don't want me? You don't like me? So.
Well, let's be honest, in our relationships, that is so trying to think that you can enter into a relationship with whatever it is, your job, your roommate, your spouse, your friend, and just let it be as it is. Don't try to change anything about it. And then think that I'm going to be at peace, because now I'm worried, well, what if I let you be like
myself?
Yourself? That could be awful scary.
That would be horrible.
That could set some triggers off in me. I have triggers that, I've had in other relationships, and I don't want you triggering me. So it would require so much trust at a level that I've never operated on before to let you be yourself. Because what if you leave me? What if you do something that upsets me?
Yeah, then what?
Oh my goodness.
And you said the word trust.
Trust.
You can't release others to be whoever they are unless you trust, not in your own petty strength, but unless you trust in the power that's in you but not of you, that you always have, that nothing can take from you. So unless you got that trust going on in source for your happiness, trust that your source has already created you complete. You don't need somebody for love. You don't need something for happiness. You don't need something outside of yourself, for happiness, health, or wealth, Otherwise, your creator would have created you incomplete. And that doesn't sound like a loving creator.
And of course, you just hit the nail right on the head, as you have to trust, but trust your source. Trust Creator, trust the universe, love, whatever you want to call that higher loving self of ours, and not the other person. And it's so much of a trap to want to trust the other person. I want to trust Anna. I want to give her that trust that she will make me happy. And she'll make me happy by dressing a certain way, so I'll get triggered, acting a certain way, especially around certain men. Don't do any of these things that are going to cause me to not trust. Well, now the question becomes, who are we trusting?
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to start diving into.
And that's what A Course in Miracles is all about. That's what A Course in Miracles is all about. All right. So everybody take a breath. And just remember, this is what we've all done in our relationships. This is not just you, me. This is all of us. So we're all the same here. So no shame, no guilt, nothing like that. Okay. And it's the ones who are listening to this that are the ones who literally are going to allow Spirit to teach them how to have relationships that are heavenly, not like torture.
Yeah, like we really are all the same in this
Yes.
and equal. We like to laugh and joke around how we have come to Earth Learning School, right?
Yes.
You ever hear that?
Earth School.
Earth School. Well, what is Earth School all about, really? Is Earth School, we all came here with this preconceived, mad, crazy idea in our head that we deserve punishment
Yes.
and fierce punishment.
Yeah.
And so that's why we all came here to learn we actually don't deserve punishment. We just learn that when a mistake is made, that there's a creator that's so mighty and powerful that that mistake can be corrected.
Exactly.
Without
with,
punishment.
With love. Exactly. Beautiful. All right. Says, you may attempt to keep your relationship bargain in the name of fairness. Sometimes you may demand payment of yourself. Perhaps more often you demand payment of the other one. Now, and in this so-called fairness, you're attempting to ease the guilt that comes from the accepted purpose of the relationship. And that is why Spirit must change your relationship's purpose. This is why Spirit, your higher self, must change your relationship's purpose. Why? To make your relationship useful to Spirit and harmless to you. Wow. The way we do relationships, it's not useful to Spirit for the good of humanity, and it's harmful to us, right? So he's saying that, and so if we want to have a different kind of relationship that's not just always trying to balance the bargain with somebody that you hate, that you call love and you call fairness, is you're going to have to say, Spirit, what is your purpose for this relationship? Here, Spirit, you take it. You use it. Spirit, what do you want to use it for? That's the only way. Okay.
I love how it says that, because we believe in this idea of punishment, that sometimes we're demanding punishment of ourselves. That's fair.
Yes, that's fair.
That's fair,
That's
out of
fair.
fairness,
A
because we
little.
all deserve punishment. But more oftentimes, we think it's better that somebody else accepts the punishment.
Exactly. In the name of fairness, yeah, I'm a little bit to blame,
We're
a
all,
little
in,
punishment.
we're all in prison, but how about if you do solitaire and I'll just hang out in the mess hall today?
Exactly. And we call that fairness.
Yes.
We call that, a fair relationship or a good compromise. Wow.
And so we can see if that's our goal, how it would make sense that is why Holy Spirit must change the purpose, or you could say change the goal.
Yes.
To make it useful to Holy Spirit, to heaven, to the good of everybody, and as you were saying, harmless unto yourself. Obviously, if you want punishment, that's going to be harmful.
Exactly. So now we're going to hear about, we heard about how we do it, and it's all about guilt. It's all about, finding the person in the situation that will make us feel most guilty, and also the person, place, and thing that also will accept my guilt. And we call it a match made in heaven. They make me feel guilty, and they also accept my guilt. It's a match made in hell. It's a guilt exchange, exactly. Now we're going to hear about Spirit's purpose for relationships, which is not just the getting and the exchange of guilt and punishment. All right.
And it's interesting, it's almost like you can hear the thoughts of some of you out there in virtual reality land or whatever, and this thought saying, well, Greg and Anna, why would I ever be so silly or ridiculous to want to punish myself. I don't want to punish myself.
I'm not a masochist.
No, I don't believe that.
I love myself.
One bit at all. I want only good for me. Look at my track record. At least I'm always trying to think of things that would be better for my life. But I want you to think for a moment, because that is a tricky deal. The ego speaks into our mind, that belief system, saying, this doesn't apply to me. I don't want punishment. But if you think about it, since your birth, what household were most any of us raised in, no matter what religious doctrine or denomination that we were brought up under? Were we brought up under the idea that you're okay?
Yeah.
You're just fine the way you are, little Johnny and little Sally. You don't need to dress different. You don't need to talk different, act different, behave different. You're perfect just the way you are. In fact, you're magnificent.
Yeah, Johnny, you can wear that dress.
Yeah.
We love you. I don't care. You're not your body.
You don't need to come into, repent of anything or change anything or put some draping over your head to not be seen or be covered or to do this on Sundays or that on Mondays.
Nobody here, none of us.
We were all brought up under this same umbrella of guilt.
Yes.
And there's nobody bad out there, because they're just handing down what was handed to them.
Exactly.
It's like handing the torch on to the next generation.
Exactly.
Here, you evildoers. This is from us evildoers, and we were given it by the evildoers we were told before us.
Keep the faith.
And imagine this new doctrine coming through the land that says you are beautiful and perfect and right just the way you are, and you can stop punishing yourself.
And you're guiltless. Exactly. Yeah, it's very difficult to accept. And it takes time. It takes time to unlearn what we've been learning for lifetimes.
Yes, don't get upset if you don't get it right away.
Exactly. Now it says in paragraph 2, if you accept this change in the purpose for your relationships, then you have accepted the idea of making room for truth. If you say, all right, I accept a new purpose for my relationship that comes from spirit, all right, then you just made way for truth. You just said, okay, truth, come on down, truth. That's what you did.
And one of the ways that we accept it is in the understanding that we do seek to punish ourselves.
Yes.
We're not in denial anymore.
Exactly.
We get that concept now.
That we're addicted to guilt. Yes.
I was going to say, it's interesting, well, depending on the culture and the family dynamics and such, but I was sharing with a friend recently about some adverse childhood experiences where there was a lot of heavy labeling, ADHD and, hyperkinetic and this and that, and really just, growing up in that era where there was a lot of this finger pointing of,
labeling.
He's the problem, he's the thorn in our side, we got a handful here.
Guilt.
And talking to my friend about, being off, getting sent to boarding school for 3 years. And it was so funny. I remember my grandparents, who were very loving. They were often my respite, my parents too. And I remember my grandmother saying, we never thought there was anything wrong with you. We thought you were just fine.
Beautiful. And that's what our Creator is saying to us every single
that
second
is
of
that
every
place
single
of
day.
that unconditional love that they had for us and me in particular.
Exactly.
Where it's like, we're active, but that's okay. And we, it was kind of a nice oasis for me at that time.
Absolutely. And so is truth. Truth is the ultimate oasis, because truth, just like your grandparents, is telling us all, you're perfect how you are. You're still exactly as love created you. You haven't changed one bit. So you're perfect as you are right now. So go have fun. That's what truth says.
Yeah, that's a great example, because our best friends are like that. You can tell them the most horrible seeming thing, how you ran around naked in the bar last night, and they're just laughing with you, telling you you're not an idiot, you're okay.
You were just drunk.
Because they know the real you.
Yeah, exactly. That's
and
right.
they love the real you.
That's right. Mistakes and all.
Yeah.
And that's an oasis, as you said.
Right.
that we can
Yes.
choose to live in all the time, not
Yes.
just on a vacation every other year.
Right.
And it says, if you accept Spirit's purpose for all your relationships, then the source of guilt is gone. Isn't that great? Because the source of guilt was just our purpose for our relationships. And Spirit's purpose is the undoing of guilt, the release from guilt. That's it. So when you accept Spirit's purpose for your relationship, then it ain't about guilt at all. It's about release from guilt, release from guilt, release from guilt. You know, that's Spirit's purpose for our relationships, is that we would release each other from guilt. Don't feel guilty. You can be mistaken, but you can't be guilty. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. You can be mistaken, but mistakes are not sins. They're just a call for correction, a call for love. No guilt, no guilt, no guilt. Okay? So when you accept Spirit's purpose for relationships, then the source of guilt is gone. Okay?
So we got our source here, which believes in punishment, and then we've of course replaced it with Spirit's purpose, and now the source, which was our belief, is gone.
Yes. Beautiful. Hi Diana, lovely to see you, and Jeannie. Hi you guys, and Julie, Mary. Beautiful. Okay, great. So it says, so you may imagine that you still experience guilt's effects, but guilt is not your purpose anymore, which means you no longer want guilt once you've accepted Spirit's purpose for all your relationships. Isn't that beautiful? There's an affirmation for you. I no longer, guilt is no longer my purpose, and I no longer want it, and I don't want my relationships to be enslaved to guilt anymore. Wow. What would happen if you said that every day? And it says, and that's what happens when you say, Spirit, I want your purpose for this relationship, not my old purpose. And it says, and no one allows their relationship purpose to be replaced while they desire a purpose. No one allows a purpose to be replaced while they desire that purpose. Why? Because nothing is so cherished and protected as is a goal the mind accepts. So when your mind accepts a goal, your mind is going to cherish that goal, and your mind is going to desire it and protect it and cherish it. Wow.
We hear little sayings in life like, to awaken, we need to renew our mind. We need to transform our mind. We need to have like a rebirth.
Yes.
And when we don't want that old goal anymore, any longer, and we're not cherishing it anymore, because we're slowly not believing, we're giving up that belief of punishment.
Yes.
Slowly giving up that idea, well maybe, because at first for some of us when we come into this concept, it sounds blasphemous that I don't deserve to be punished. Are you kidding? You know, but as we slowly give that up, and then we slowly start seeing the effects of that, and going, oh wow, I can actually have a relationship that is, I gave her some string off of my fishing pole, and she swam further away than I've ever trusted her to swim before, trusting in Spirit's purpose. And then not only did I realize I didn't get hurt, I didn't get harmed, but I experienced things that I've never allowed myself to experience before, because I was too afraid to let that person be themselves.
Yes.
Or to let that job be itself. And then what if I don't work at that job anymore and I got one that I like? But I couldn't get the one I liked because I was clinging on to this old belief that I need to be punished and work at that place I don't want to be at.
Exactly. And that's a very good point. You know, the Course in Miracles says that our biggest block to releasing people from guilt is that we were taught that if you release someone from guilt, you will lose them. That's what we all were taught, and that's what we all still believe. You know, if I just release them to follow their bliss, and I don't give them guilt so that they'll stay with me, then they'll leave me.
Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that, duh. Right? And when it's really the exact opposite, as we've also all experienced. You let people be, you release them from guilt, just be yourself. Even if that means you don't want to be with me, be yourself. Be happy. Even if that means you don't want to be with me, be happy. And what happens? You know, they're knocking down our door. They're blowing up our phone. You really release somebody to free them from guilt so that they can be happy, and they don't want to run away from you. Who else in their life is releasing them from guilt? How many people in their lives besides you are releasing them from guilt? You know, what? No, nobody. So it's not true that when you release somebody from guilt that they will leave you. Now, if they are still addicted to guilt, then they will leave you. But that's when you throw a party.
Yes.
Woohoo! Party at my place tonight.
Imagine the person.
Somebody who hated me left me.
Yeah, imagine the person that you've been with all this time, that you've been fighting and fighting to stay in this relationship.
Yes.
And they are set to the guilt that punishment is their path.
Yes.
Punishment is my path. And they are not willing or desiring to get off of that path.
Yes.
And then you finally give in and let them be where they are, and now you're not feeding them their goal. How can they be happy with you when their goal is punishment and you're not giving that to them? Anna and I call that, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to figure out nothing about, well, should I leave this relationship or should I stay with this relationship? If you just do your part, guaranteed, if they're supposed to leave, if you're not supposed to be together, we call it self-selecting out. They will self-select out of that relationship.
Yeah. They'll say, I'm breaking up with you.
Yeah, this
And you're
isn't,
like,
this isn't working for me.
Awesome. Right, exactly. You know, the guilt as a goal is the same thing as saying, I have a addiction to conflict. You know, we've all had addictions to conflict, and we've all known people who loved conflict. They love it. They love to fight. You know people who've stayed together for 30, 40 years, and they fight all the time. You know, and we go, oh, what a terrible relationship they have. And they're like, no, they love it.
Yeah,
you know, that's their drug.
They're fulfilling,
you know, they're fulfilling their purpose.
Their purpose, their
yes,
goal.
Yeah, the corollary to that, recently of the past few years, I've had a few conversations with friends of mine, and it's interesting where I had stood up for my, what I would call medical choice, informed choice, informed consent around certain medical procedures. It's interesting, the people that really would guiltify me, shame me, blame me, or, well, you must just be anti-da-da-da, out of the picture.
Yes.
Out of the picture. On the other hand, I just talked today with a former lover of mine in on the West Coast, and she was wonderful. We talked about kind of our views, and very loving, respectful. This is a person I would have dinner with again, or lunch. And those people are, those are my keepers.
Absolutely.
And this shakeout, like we talked today about how the past few years have been kind of like a separation of the wheat from the chaff.
That's
And
right.
those remaining, those are our allies, our friends.
That's
and those
exactly
who
right.
we just don't, whatever, hey, you know what? Have a good life.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So if you've decided that you only want Spirit's purpose for all your relationships, which is the release from guilt, otherwise known as forgiveness, and there's someone in your life and they are still addicted to that conflict, then when you stop giving them guilt and accepting their guilt, don't forget that part. Don't forget that part. Then they will just naturally self-select out, as Greg said, because they're not getting their mind's purpose, right? if the mind has if the mind's purpose is to give and receive guilt because you think it's safety, protection, love, whatever you learned, and you stop feeding that purpose, then you won't meet their purpose anymore. They'll be like, oh, I don't need them anymore, and then they'll find somebody else, whom they can fulfill their purpose with. So you don't have to go, I'm breaking up with you because you love guilt. Don't say that. They will self-select out.
Just become loving and you will become boring to them.
Very good. Just be loving and you will become boring to them. Exactly. Very good. Exactly. I remember years ago, my younger brother, who's a lawyer, he used to say, I just don't like talking to you because you just agree with what I say. And I'm like, isn't that good? I just look for what I can agree with, which isn't much, but I just look for what I can agree with, and I join with you on that, But for him, that was boring and no fun.
You're not stimulating my mind.
Yes.
That needs to be renewed.
Exactly.
But it's not going to be renewed because I've already accepted the path I believe.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful. So it says, no one allows a purpose to be replaced while they desire that purpose because nothing is so cherished and protected as is a goal the mind accepts. The goal your mind accepts, your mind will follow, grimly or happily, but always with faith and with the persistence that faith inevitably brings. So what does faith mean? Persistence. What do you have faith in? What you're going to be persistently pursuing. Okay? That's what you have faith in. And you're going to be persistently pursuing whatever your mind's purpose is. What do you want? Do you want love or guilt? Do you want love or fear?
And how powerful is it? Your mind, whatever it has accepted, if I've accepted punishment, that's what my mind is going to bring forth to manifest in my experience.
Exactly.
That's why we're told here, this will follow grimly or happily. It's going to follow this grudgingly or very excited. Whatever way that you believe. If I believe in punishment, then I'm still gonna do it, even though I hate doing it, but it's because I have that old purpose, that old belief system, that old goal that I want to prove I'm right.
Yes.
I'm right.
Yes, exactly. And we all learned that that to follow the path of no guilt is the ultimate blasphemy that makes you ultimately worthy of death. That's what we all learned, right? We learned that the ultimate sin worthy of death is to say, I am innocent, I am not guilty.
Or to tell somebody else that they're not a sinner or they're innocent or not guilty.
Exactly.
Same thing.
And so we're following guilt as if we're trying to save our life. We think that to pursue guilt with all the mind power of our mind is to save our own life. Isn't that deep?
Yeah.
Isn't that deep? And we all learned that no matter what religion we came up in, we all learned that to say I am guiltless is the ultimate sin that makes you deserve death right here, right now. Ooh, strike you down right here, God will strike you blind. That's what we learned. That's how deeply the belief and the concept of guilt and sin has been entrenched into our minds, and of Course in Miracles is to the reversal, the undoing of all of that. Okay. Now, if it wasn't for our higher mind, Holy Spirit, we would be doomed. There's no way that we would be able to overcome that training, that conditioning in sin and guilt. But because we have Holy Spirit, our higher self, the voice for God, then it can be easily overcome and unlearned in a holy instant. Thank you, God. Something to be grateful for. All right, beautiful. So it says the power of faith is never recognized if faith is placed in guilt. If you're placing your faith in guilt, you'll never know the power of your faith. But the power of your faith is always recognized if your faith is placed in love. So if I'm placing my faith in love, well, I'm scared here, but I'm gonna go with love. I'm gonna release them from guilt. I'm gonna put my faith in the idea that if I release them from guilt and just love them, that it'll be okay. I'm gonna put my faith in that, even though it's tough, it's hard. Faith is something that's required, that it's a stretch. Faith implies a stretch. And then you go, okay, I'm going to have faith that if I just love them and free them from guilt, it's going to be okay. And then, boom, whoa, you see the power of your faith.
Because it changes the way it has been. That's how you recognize
That's right. Everything changes.
The way it's been before is always the way it's been. So how are you going to recognize something that's been the way it's always been? Guilt.
Exactly.
But you try a new concept, and then what you feared was going to happen didn't happen. And then you recognize the power of giving a guiltless relationship to whatever it is you're dealing with, and then watch the response.
Yes.
We've already been told, don't do that. Don't do that.
You'll lose.
Oh,
You'll
don't
be
do
alone.
that. Don't even think of doing that. It doesn't work that way.
You'll be alone forever.
That's not logical.
No one else will want you.
Protect yourself.
No one else will want you.
That's why A Course in Miracles, in the first pages that we open up, we hear that truth, love, need no defense. Love doesn't need to defend itself. In other words, love can just let you go.
Love doesn't have to protect itself.
Doesn't need to protect itself. Doesn't need to put a hedge around itself, and that hedge is you changing for it to be safe.
Yes, exactly. I don't need to sacrifice to protect love. I don't need to sacrifice just to make sure that love doesn't leave me. Wow. And if I do sacrifice, I'm not going to be experiencing love. I'm going to be experiencing resentment. You know, and that's, if you want someone to sacrifice for you, then, you tell them, listen, if you love me, sacrifice for me. And if they go, okay, I'll sacrifice for you. What you're getting from them is not love. What you're getting from them is resentment, or what it called hate.
Wow.
So that's why that's what it means to have faith and love. I'm not going to demand that you sacrifice for me in the so-called name of love.
Yeah, imagine if you were with somebody. It's easy to picture this in a child, but imagine you had a child and the child wanted so desperately and was very good at dancing. But you, of course, to make the child happy, of course, for their own best interest, you want them to be a football player. And it just didn't make sense that they be a dancer. After all, you were a football player. Look at all the football players in your family before you. And so you repress this child from doing what their whole inner being is screaming out to do and to be.
And you call it love.
And you call that love. And that's what we do with our relationships.
That's right.
Thinking that we're being loving, when rather we're limiting them. And as we were told, anytime that we're limiting, we're creating hate, because now that child is going to be resentful because I don't get to do what I want to do. I'm even afraid to say what I want to do because I know I'm going to be made fun of, and we all know the story.
And we all know how that story goes.
Yeah.
Exactly. We all know that story too well. Right. Beautiful. Let's take a breath. And questions or comments? How does it feel to hear these ideas? Does it make you want to throw up? Does it make you want to do a dance? How does it feel to hear these ideas?
That's good. Well, when you understand that fear and love, and you believe in the specialness, it's the same thing.
Yes.
And when you finally unite that thought and take it in and really understand it, then you can start to then it just goes.
Yes.
That was the awakening experience I had 3 weeks ago, where I really saw that I'm believing I love you, but I'm telling you that no, that's not right what you're doing. So is that really love? No.
No, that's hate.
And if you even have these secret little thoughts in the back of your mind, that's hate,
That's right.
right?
Exactly.
We think they're little
Resentment,
no,
yeah.
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
that's not love.
Amen. And Dia, you raised your hand?
God, you remember my name. This
Yes.
is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is complete inspiration for me to motivate myself to, keep saying everything that comes to me. Be honest with yourself.
Yes.
Trust yourself. This is a way in.
Yes.
So many things that you said. Thank you. It's now I can have some more honest sessions with myself.
Very good. Beautiful.
Big gift.
Exactly. Now you get to love yourself for real, the way your Creator loves you.
And love others as you would love
Yes.
yourself, which is letting them be free too.
Exactly. So beautiful. Yes.
I think that it's helpful that with this work that we're doing, to when you're in relationship with someone that's with you all the time, to recognize that society has really conditioned us
Yes.
with how relationships are supposed to look. And so there's all that conditioning that goes with it, that if you're in this type of relationship, you're to behave this way. And then, so there's this expectation on both sides of what that's supposed to be. And what I've realized recently is that it's good to just have it undefined, except for the fact that it's a holy relationship, you have a soul connection, and that you love each other.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that your purpose is to release each other from guilt.
Yes.
Even better.
That's the purpose.
That's
Yes.
it.
I'm so glad you said that. That is so beautiful of an encapsulation, that when you're accepting Spirit's purpose for the relationship, what's important is the love, which means the release from guilt, not the form. And we've been so conditioned to worship the form of the relationship. And when you're in this form of relationship, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what love looks like, and this is what you have to do for that relationship. And that's not love at all. That's a sacrifice.
And it's different for everyone.
And it's different for
Because
everybody.
has their own idea of what they're comfortable with and what they
Exactly.
want, their needs. And you put two
Exactly.
people together, and that doesn't always match.
That's exactly right. Each person's experience of happiness takes different forms. One person experiences happiness dancing, the other person experiences happiness, roller skating or hiking, But we've been conditioned that if you love someone or if they love you, then they will not do what makes them happy, they'll do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And that's what love does.
Right.
Do what I like to do that brings me joy,
Exactly.
and sacrifice what you like to do that brings you joy.
Right.
And we'll
tit
call
for
that
tat.
a miracle.
Yeah, we'll call it love. And then we wonder why there's the famous statement, you only hurt those you love. Remember that one? You only hurt those you love? Well, that's how it happens. If you call love sacrifice, then of course you're gonna hurt someone you say you love, and vice versa. That's how that comes to pass. It's not true that you only hurt who you love. You only hurt those you imprison with guilt. You only hurt those you don't love. That's how it really goes.
Could you put in the frame that you're exposing here the movie phrase of love is never having to say I'm sorry?
Remember, it's from a movie.
Yes,
love
yes.
story.
It's a colloquialism. It's a colloquialism.
I've chewed on
yes.
that for years.
Right.
And how?
Well, you know, that's not how the author of A Course in Miracles defines love. You know, as a matter of fact, you know, the relationships as we've learned to do them, we're saying sorry all the time. sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. You need to say sorry. You know, so that's a statement that, you know, didn't come from source.
I'm gonna just add.
That's my perception.
Yeah, I also find that when you become in a state of love and communion with your partner, you make mistakes, and
Yes.
it's like, oh my God, no,
Yes.
you just move on.
Right,
You
exactly.
trust in it,
Yes.
and you just move on.
Absolutely.
So there's a deep, abiding love that is
Absolutely.
healing.
And my experience of saying sorry is that every time I become aware that I have given someone guilt, meaning I've attacked them, I gave them something besides love, as soon as I become aware of it, I like to apologize.
Amen.
I say, I'm so sorry. I gave you guilt instead of love. I'm so sorry. That was my fear. That was my call for love. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve guilt. You don't deserve guilt. And so I'm so sorry. So I say sorry a lot in that regard.
And maybe your partner doesn't even feel guilt. So it's okay.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You're mature to that.
Yes.
place.
I think that expression that she's saying, that love means never having to say sorry, is actually meant to mean that there's been no judgment.
Gotcha. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
exactly where I went with it too.
And
Like,
that's
I see.
you never have to be
And that's
sorry
in a perfect
because
thing, but we're not there yet.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why I'm taking notes.
That's why I'm taking notes. Beautiful.
Thank you for bringing that
Yes,
back around.
beautiful. And what a
That's
great
good.
question. And now, what's your understanding or experience of that idea?
Well, it's what I've come to myself because a few years ago I came on the concept of, well, we don't go around apologizing, the whole Pono and the Course in Miracles, and I'm sorry, unless if I've already judged.
Yes.
But
gotcha.
a very beautiful woman in Hawaii said, that's true, but I'm just not enlightened yet. I'm not
Right,
fully
exactly.
enlightened.
That's
And
exactly
then
right.
The two of you just
Yes.
said that in all of this. So
Until we are enlightened, which means not giving guilt anymore, then apologizing when you've given guilt is very loving. It's a very loving thing to do. You know? And maybe even apologize to yourself when you give yourself guilt. How about that?
Yeah.
What a radical concept. I'm sorry, self, for giving you guilt today.
This is what it looks like when somebody's having a moment, a spiritual moment right here. I don't know how many of you are into any kind of astrology, or I had an astrology reading that I heard this last couple of weeks, and it so profoundly hit me that I listened to a different one, and then a different one, and they were all drawing the same cards and saying the same thing. It was like something from a movie, The Twilight Zone or something. And they were saying that somebody is getting ready to come into your experience by the beginning of April. And they're contemplating on what to say to you. They don't know how to come back into your experience. And they're really looking, you're talking about saying, I'm sorry. And this person, something to do with love, and so I'm trying to figure out who it could be. And I had a experience with somebody in my life some years back that was so traumatic for both of us. We both were ready to fight. You know that one. I mean, we were ready to fight if it came down to each other. And I'm just realizing as we're reading here, the power of what we're reading here, the power of faith is never recognized if placed in punishment, placed in guilt. And this person wrote me just yesterday, literally, after all these years, just before this class. and apologize. I really should be the first one to apologize to this other person, but apologized and wanted to hand out an olive branch and said, can we wipe the slate clean and start over with forgiveness.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And Anna and I were both like,
we were like,
blown away, like not in a million years. And this just happened last week. So thank you, Spirit. I'm just like,
Wow.
and,
the power of faith in love.
and all day long I felt this like heavy weight that from this story, that I literally could feel the pressure and the heaviness of it lifted off. And I could only imagine what the person must be feeling.
Yes, exactly.
That initiated and trusted Spirit
Yes, right.
that they could do that, and the outcome would be good for them.
Exactly.
Not the other way that this other person has imagined they would want to do it, and myself would be a good way to do it and approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that person put his faith in the power of love, and then you responded by putting your faith in love. You know, by saying yes to love instead of oh hell no.
And that's how both of us, or either one of us that want to do it, accept Spirit's repurposing of a new goal.
Yes,
A
exactly.
new goal, rather
All
than
relationships.
now truly today, rather than me wanting some kind of punishment for this person or kind of snickering it under my breath if I heard this happen to them, you know, it wasn't
Yes.
great. Now my heart has totally been transformed, totally renewed, and my purpose for that relationship is totally transformed.
So beautiful. It's a perfect example. Perfect example. Beautiful. Yes.
I want to share that your story reminds me of some guy. He's a little older than me. I was at one of my high school reunions, my 30th, and they had combined the class of 75, 76, which is me. And he came right up to me, this guy Paul, and I had not seen him in decades, and told me, you know, I realized like in scouts and stuff like that, I was just a real asshole toward you, and I'm really sorry.
Wow.
And I burst into tears.
Yes. The power
It's one of
of
the
faith.
first
and
people
love.
I encountered at that reunion. He came right to me,
So beautiful.
like wow. And we've had a great friendship since, and you know, have periodic get-togethers and.
The power of faith
Wow,
and love.
that was
Yes.
like whoa.
And in that very few seconds that it happened, how fast does that snap the cord of all of that built up?
The weight,
Mhm.
the
Weight
weight of the hate.
Yeah, the hate,
Oh.
the resentment, the bitterness.
The
It becomes, oh, don't even worry about
oh,
it. Even
you're
though,
innocent.
Yeah,
Even though you
we
did
were all young back then. We were all
we
idiots.
were all mistaken.
Yeah.
Exactly. It goes from the weight of the hate and the toxicity of the hate to oh, we're all the same. We all make mistakes. You know, we've all made the same mistakes. We're all just learning here. You know, that's putting that's putting our faith in love, the power of faith in love instead of guilt. Now the next sentence is, why is it strange to you that faith can move mountains? That's the next sentence. That's what we've been talking about. When you put your faith in the love, even when you're tempted to put your faith in the guilt, then that faith, that mental energy moves mountains. Mountains of burdens, mountains of lack, mountains of pain, mountains of sickness, mountains of hurt. That faith in love instead of guilt moves the mountains. Exactly what you were just talking about in your two.
Yeah, so the whole time Bonnie and I have been together, I've often dumped my guilt on her, or tried to. But fortunately, she's really, really like aware. She didn't let it happen. Like, don't dump that shit on me.
Can we quote you on that song? Don't put that guilt shit on me. Spoken
So she's
by
talking
a
two
enlightened
things.
master on it.
Bonnie's talking two things. no
No more
assumptions.
guilt here.
The Bible taught me 2 things. Make no assumptions and have no expectations.
Beautiful.
It's very simple.
That's beautiful.
So I just trust.
Bonnie
and
taught you make no assumptions, and what was the other
Have
one?
no expectations.
And have no expectation. And don't put that shit. Don't put that
It
good
was
shit on
still
me.
learning, remember. We haven't mastered
This took years. It's not.
Yes,
I'm
of
explaining it like
course,
in 1
of
minute.
course. Exactly. Exactly.
Totally get that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And that's what we learn to do with love in our relationships that we give to Spirit. For Spirit's purpose. Spirit goes, I'm going to teach you now how to not give guilt for control in the name of love, and I'm going to teach you how not to accept that guilt lovingly. Lovingly. That's a whole art in itself, not accepting guilt lovingly. Instead of going, no, put that shit on me. Beautiful.
Hi, Bridget. And I hear somebody out there saying in their mind, somebody out there is saying right now, they're saying, well, what if I'm in a relationship and so, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply these magical, beautiful, miracle principles, and I'm going to start not giving guilt. But what if my partner keep giving guilt?
Good question.
And
Good
so,
question.
again, take that thought that's coming in, because all of those thoughts are trying desperately to keep us in the old purpose, the old belief system, the old I deserve punishment. So that's where all the trust comes in. Don't worry, write this down if you have to, what the other person or the situation is doing. The situation in my bank account or my job or my partner. Don't worry about the other side. That doesn't have anything to do with whether this is going to work or not for you.
Or whether they're also doing it.
Right. Whether it's going to work or not is whether you sign up and say, I'm going to give this situation, this relationship, this event, whatever it is that you're struggling with, and I'm going to give it to Spirit to repurpose, and I'm going to stop condemning it and judging it as guilty, that something's wrong. I don't want anything else to be fixed anymore about it. I'm not going to try to fix anything about it. I don't know how that's ever going to resolve anything by that ridiculous kind of behavior, but I'm going to at least try it now and see what this no guilt demonstration does.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you.
Chapter 21 has a section that is so beautiful, it's one of my favorites. And before we end, I would love to be able to read it.
Yes, and we would like you to come up closer to the mic when you do read it so they can hear it better too.
Beautiful. And how long is it?
It's a couple of paragraphs.
Beautiful. Okay, beautiful. Excellent. Beautiful. So that's a good point, is that that the power of faith is even when somebody is giving you the guilt, you've decided, okay, I'm not going to give guilt, I'm not going to attack, but they're still doing it. Well, that's why it's called faith, because you're going to have to exercise faith and trust in order to not give guilt back. Trusting that when you put your faith in release from guilt, that has power. Now it will accomplish for you the love, the joy, the release, the freedom, the abundance, the healing that you want and that you deserve. So it takes faith, okay? In other words, it's not easy at first. It takes faith that this will work, even though I'm not sure it's going to work. Okay?
I often share a story. Anna was my teacher coming into A Course in Miracles, and one of the stories I always love to remind myself is coming home after a class, and I entered into a really intense confrontation where somebody was yelling and screaming at me,
Giving him guilt.
Giving me guilt, lots of guilt. And you know what happens when that happens to you is your immediate response is defend, attack back, justify, you know, all of those attributes. And I heard Anna in my mind, because I'm freshly out of class, along these similar lines of don't attack back. And even as I was doing it, in my mind, I couldn't even say nothing because I couldn't think literally of one loving thing to say back.
There wasn't a defense.
And so I just literally kept my mouth shut, nodded, and I said to Spirit, I don't know how this works, but I'm giving this relationship to you. And I walked off into another room, staying calm, trying to stay collective. And then all of a sudden, literally in 30 to 45 minutes, this same person, which I did absolutely nothing, came and hugged me and apologized and totally released me of everything that they just said to me, and realized why they did to me what they did was because of some other situation that had happened to them earlier in the day, and they realized they were taking it out on me. But if I would have attacked back, they wouldn't have came to that conclusion at all. There would have been no time for peace treaties. There would only be time for an extended war. And so it's at those times, literally, why we sit here week in and week out trying to encourage people of the good news, which is we have power. We have great power. We have the decision of choice of deciding to choose for peace or to choose for war, choose for love or choose for hate. And it all comes down to, am I going to trust my perception or am I going to trust my source, my creator?
Yes, exactly. Am I going to place my faith in guilt or am I going to place my faith in love? Yes.
And I realized something too that, you know, taking that pause, as you're saying, and not reacting,
Yes.
and walking away and collecting your own self, always shifts everything.
Yes.
That's a big thing I've just been learning myself.
Yes.
When I just go to my room in that moment where I've reacted to something and I know I have, I just go away and sit with it, and then I realize what happened.
Exactly.
Because when you respond right away, it's always the first thing that comes is what
Exactly.
the ego's saying, right? And you want to just attack back.
And then mountains are moved.
And
Mountains were moved. Mountains were moved. Mountains were moved. Mountains that you were like, this is a mountain of a problem.
Or this is a miracle.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So beautiful. Well, I'm just going to finish this paragraph and then we'll stop. We'll end here for the session. So it says, so why is it strange to you that this kind of faith and love instead of guilt can move mountains? Question mark. This is indeed a little feat for such a power. Wow. Not only can it move mountains, but it can do other feats. That's what release from guilt can do. And it says, because faith can keep you in chains as long as you believe you are in chains. And when you are released from chains, it will simply be because you no longer believe in chains. It will simply be because you withdrew your faith that those chains can hold you, and you placed your faith in your freedom instead. Is what happens when the chains are released. When you put your faith in release from guilt.
So picture next time you want to give guilt out as a big heavy chain that you're strapping around your ankle.
Exactly. Wow, that's a great image. You know, guilt equals chain around your ankle or your wrist or your neck. Very good. It says, it is impossible to place equal faith in opposite directions. In other words, what faith you give to guilt is faith you take away from guiltlessness or love. And the faith you offer to love has been removed from guilt. The faith you give to love is faith that was removed from guilt. Beautiful. All right.
Well, there's several more paragraphs, and as we say every week, if you feel inclined, go to section 21, section 3, and read the rest of it. And you'll find that there's always a couple more little morsels in the basket that you can put yourself to sleep with tonight.
To say the least. And Diana says, seemingly insurmountable to miraculous. Exactly.
And
that's the journey we're on.
And thank you guys for all of those million hearts
Yes.
that have been popping up through the whole time on the.
Exactly.
I try not to get distracted, but it
No.
does give me happy feet to
Yeah,
see those.
I love it. And hi Susan, lovely to see you. And Jet says, if you, okay. Jet says, if you're reading this, bring your friends back to Namaste for a piece of non-guilt cake. Non-guilt cake.
And
for real?
herbal non-guilt tea.
I love it. Is that for real?
Yes.
There's guilt-free cake.
There's guilt-free cake in heaven.
Yes.
Right?
Are we in heaven already?
Yes.
Yes, we are. Wonderful. Well, why don't you come on up and read what
Yeah.
you were going to read?
I'd love to.
And how about
Amrit is going to read a couple of paragraphs from chapter 21, and then after that, we're going to do an integration meditation. Come on up, honey.
Oh, thank you so much
Hi.
for letting me do this.
Aw.
and just stay up here for the
Yes.
meditation. Just be
Okay, I
relaxed.
will. Thank you. This is such a beautiful section of the course. It's called the Ancient Melody.
No.
The Ancient Melody.
Ancient melody.
Listen. The sentence before this paragraph is listen and try to think if you remember what we will speak of now. Listen. Perhaps you catch a hint of an ancient state, not quite forgotten, dim perhaps, and yet not altogether unfamiliar, like a song whose name is long forgotten, and the circumstances in which you heard completely unremembered. Not the whole song has stayed with you, but just a little wisp of melody, attached not to a person or a place or anything particular, but you remember just this little part. How lovely was the song, how wonderful the setting where you heard it, and how you loved those who were there and listened with you. The notes are nothing, and yet you have kept them with you, not for themselves, but as a soft reminder of what would make you weep if you remembered how dear it was to you. You could remember, yet you are afraid, believing you would lose the world you learned since then. And yet you know that nothing in the world you learned is half as dear as this. Listen and see if you remember an ancient song you knew so long ago and held more dear than any melody you taught yourself to cherish since. Beyond the body, beyond the sun and the stars, past everything you see, and yet somehow familiar, is an arc of golden light that stretches as you look into a great and shining circle. And all the circle fills with light before your eyes. The edges of the circle disappear, and what is in it is no longer contained at all. The light expands and covers everything, extending to infinity, forever shining with no break or limit anywhere. Within it, everything is joined in perfect continuity, nor is it possible to imagine that anything could be outside, for there is nowhere where this light is not. This is the vision of the Son of God. Amen and thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Beautiful. Oh my God. That's a total beautiful song. Bless you.
Certainly is.
All right. So let's just take a moment and just feel what read to us. See if we can remember heaven, remember being home, remember those who are there home, at home with us. And this experience of heaven, home heaven, this is the experience of the relationships that we give back to Spirit. That Spirit give its purpose. Heaven is the relationship we let Spirit's purpose guide our relationship. Our relationships with Spirit's purpose is the way that Spirit turns hell into heaven. Our relationships, whose purpose is release from guilt, become the way that Spirit turns earth into heaven. So let's bring to our awareness a relationship where we have been experiencing guilt, whether we were giving the guilt or receiving the guilt. And you know which relationship that is, because that's the relationship where you are experiencing something besides love and joy and peace and abundance. Their name has crossed your mind already. Now I want you to look into this relationship, and I want you to see where it is that you had placed your faith in the giving or receiving of guilt and punishment. I want you to look to see where in this relationship you were demanding sacrifice in the name of love. And I want you to look to see where you consented to sacrifice, where they demanded sacrifice in the name of love, and you consented to sacrifice in the name of love. And then notice what resulted from those choices. How did you feel in that relationship? What came of those relationships? And now, let's give this relationship back to Spirit and say, Spirit, I want your purpose for this relationship to replace my old purpose for this relationship. I don't want my old purpose for this relationship. It has harmed us both. Spirit, what's your purpose for this relationship? How would you have me use this relationship, Spirit? And take a breath. What we're seeing in the struggle and the suffering is the results of putting our faith in guilt, thinking it made us safe, thinking it protected us, thinking it made us strong. And now, let's do what A Course in Miracles told us we could do, and let's remove our faith from the guilt, the giving and the receiving of it. Let's remove our faith from faith in the sacrifice as love, and take our faith out and back from the guilt and the sacrifice. And now let's put our faith in love, real love, trusting that real love, releasing ourselves and them from guilt, will make us safe and make us happy. And so we say to that other person, say their name silently, and say their name and say, I give you back to the Holy Spirit as a part of myself. I know that you will be released from guilt and pain unless I want to use you to imprison my own self with guilt and pain. So in the name of my freedom, so-and-so, I choose your release from guilt, because I recognize that we will be released from guilt and suffering together. Amen. And now I want you to just tune within to see how this relationship feels now in your heart, in your mind, in your body. How do you feel about this person, this relationship now? How do you feel inside your own self now that you just released your Savior from guilt and released yourself from chains? And this feeling, that is the rewards of forgiveness. And I want you to tell yourself, I just moved a mountain. I just moved the mountain that was in front of me that I thought I'd never get over or through. I just moved that mountain that I thought I'd never get over. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for the power of the truth. And thank you, self. Thank yourself. Thank yourself for choosing love over guilt. Beautiful. And then just take another deep breath, integrating that. Take a breath. Beautiful. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, open your eyes, stretch, yawn. Beautiful. Way to love yourself. Way to love yourself, guys. Way to love yourself. Good job. Way to take your place among the saviors of the world. Way to save the world. Way to save the world. Good job. Thank you. All right, you guys. See you next time we see you. Love you guys.
Oh.
Hi, Demi.